way, when we say man drinking a smoothie, we ask him how the smoothie is.
How's your smoothie?
I don't want to talk about it.
That bad, huh?
Fine. Look, I'm not really one to complain. But I will say that, I keep my temper in check, I would say, for the most part. But every once in a while, there's a real little insignificant thing that will just make me want to destroy a city block, and that happened this afternoon right before the show at Smoothie King. You'll notice that this is not in its original. I didn't get this at Smoothie King. The glass, they don't come like this. They come in styrofoam cups, believe it or not.
Because
and you may be wondering.
Yeah,
exactly. You might be wondering, what does your bad mood have to do with the design of car doors over the past half century? And you know what? I'll tell you. I hate how they have this big fucking wing, like on the top corner, and like every once in a while, like hit myself, or I just it's bothered me for however long since they've been shaped that way. And it all really came to a head this afternoon, Matthew, if I may call you Matthew, when it knocked the fucking cup out of my hand. And half of that, it's not the fact that I got strawberry smoothie all over me. That's hilarious. The only thing that would have been funnier is if it wasn't half of it, if it was all of it. That would have been funnier. It's not that. It's just that the fact that a car door can be designed wrong. And I've known it, for years upon years. And it just bothers me.
You sound like me. Like when something like that happens, it's the responsibility of the inanimate object that didn't do its fucking job.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only purpose of an inanimate object is to sit there and be inanimate, not to get in my way, not to screw up whatever I'm trying to do. If you're going to be an inanimate object, just be inanimate.
Yep. The conversations I've had with things that have no life inside them whatsoever is like absolutely be hospitalized, institutionalized.
Well, it's a good thing to hear that you're just as rational of a person as I am, because anybody who doesn't see these plain truths is
right. You better unsubscribe.
It's not my problem
immediately. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Welcome aboard, folks. You are watching
fans.
Another episode of King Pilled. Yeah, fans, all of our fans.
Hello to all the liberty lovers out there.
Oh God.
Good afternoon, ladies and germs. Just runs through you, doesn't it?
Now we have to cancel the show. Like now we have to delete the YouTube channel.
This really puts Maddie in a bad mood when liberty lovers.
Oh man. I really wish that I could read out loud the video that I watched the other day of Jon Stewart in 2003 mocking Dennis Kucinich, talking about having it was like LGBT rights and talking about the idea of having. He said Dennis Kucinich said he would vote for a tranny or I guess I can't even say that word. Who would vote for a transgender
have a great
person?
Afternoon. Remember, follow Matthew on Twitter.
or a lesbian or a gay person. Like 2003, he's talking about voting for lesbians for the Supreme Court, and he even said transgender people.
Just to clarify, he said that he wouldn't vote for the transmission of a car, which you shortened.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Or
Right, yeah, because he's because Dennis Kucinich, being a very liberal person, he's very concerned about the environment. So it's important to him that cars not have transmissions because, as you know, transmissions are the key facilitator for global warming. So people grinding those gears gets it all hot and everything, and that's what heats up the surface of the planet. So
sounds like this video clip was really grinding your gears.
Oh, very, very much so. So much so it was like that's where the tranny came from. It was like it was grinding my gears like a tranny in my brain. So anyway, so Jon Stewart has this quote from him, and then he says disparagingly, he says, "That's right. All rise for the Honorable Justice Chick with word that rhymes with chick." That I'm not going to say that phrase because I'm confident that phrase will.
Yeah.
There's no, backing your way out of that phrase. So, but yeah.
No.
So this is Jon Stewart. 18
Put
years
that
ago.
tranny in reverse. Am I right? Not happening.
So this is 18 years ago. Like Jon Stewart, just the speed with which
Holy shit, that's 18 years ago.
2003.
That's terrifying.
Yep.
Oof.
Someone born when this clip came out can now vote in a U.S. election.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Damn.
but yeah, that just the speed with which this culture has evolved itself to where it is now, it's pretty remarkable, and I think historians looking back are going to be pretty amazed. But anyways, that was just something I just saw as I'm scrolling past my my Twitter feed as I'm trying to find this other tweet that I wanted to talk about. I went and opened it on the wrong computer, and it doesn't do me any good there. So I've got to find it on here. But anyway, okay, there we go. Anyways, welcome to King Pilled, folks. For those of you who are watching on for those of you who are watching on YouTube, do us a favor, like the stream here, and then subscribe to the channel, and then share the stream for us. And in the future, if you're listening to this on iTunes or wherever you're listening to it, just do some stuff. Do the stuff that you're supposed to do with the stream, like just whatever everyone asks you to do, just go do it, and then we'll have a good show for you. So I've got, before we really get into the meat of the show today, I have got a few just kind of miscellaneous headlines and interesting pieces of note that I wanted to just put in front of you. So the first thing is a thread that Thaddeus Russell just tweeted out a little bit ago this morning. He's quoting from Judge Lawrence Silberman of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, and it's a statement that was just made. I'm pretty sure, I didn't actually go look at the context because it didn't really matter to me that much, but I'm pretty sure this is in the Project Veritas New York Times case. And I don't know. I have no idea what this is for. I just know that it's a case here. So what's interesting is the content of it. So this judge for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit said, quote, "The increased power of the press is so dangerous today because we are very close to one-party control of these institutions. Two of the three most influential papers, the New York Times and the Washington Post, are virtually Democrat Party broadsheets. And the news section of the Wall Street Journal leans in the same direction. The orientation of these three papers is followed by the Associated Press and most large papers across the country, such as the LA Times, Miami Herald, and Boston Globe. Nearly all television, network, and cable is a Democrat Party trumpet. Even the government-supported National Public Radio follows along." I thought that was just pretty striking that we've got a U.S. Court of Appeals judge who is observing this phenomenon. And there are wide swaths of the so-called Libertarian Party that don't even recognize this, that can't even identify this phenomenon. There's something you can learn about the nature of a system like this, where it can be so completely obvious to some people what the nature of the system is and what the just how it works, what works and what doesn't work about it, and identifying the trajectory of where it's going. The nature of this system, as it's been taken over by this mind virus of wokeness, is, the wokeness is just a tool for political consolidation or political centralization, and it's being used extraordinarily well. And history tells the tale of, there's been a variety of different mind viruses that have been used by people to consolidate their society politically, consolidate power politically. It's just a matter of whichever one works for it. And this one happens to work extraordinarily well. But somehow, it just does not occur to some people. It's just, we don't want to believe in conspiracy theories or something. And so they don't recognize what's happening. And they're not going to recognize what's happening until, as I've joked before, they'll be being loaded onto the boxcar and discussing why the relative merits of privatized boxcars or something. This is just, we're in a increasingly deranged age. And I called this episode the generation of degeneration, because this is where, everything is degenerating. It started with the ethical undergirding of society, the moral undergirding of society, and as that's been just chipped away gradually, the rest of the society is going with it. As your foundation goes, so goes the rest of your building, and so that's what's happening. So it's very interesting to me that we've gotten to the point where a U.S. federal judge recognizes this phenomenon, recognizes this dynamic, and as people become aware of this and they start speaking out against it, as they start pulling the curtain back and revealing the beast for what it is, the beast is going to start getting much more aggressive about disguising itself and hiding its true purpose, hiding its true intent, until the time comes where it's either no longer reasonable to try to hide it, or it's just not possible anymore. And then it will expose itself. The beast will expose itself in its greatest manifestation, and will be the society as we knew it will be no more. We're not going to recognize the society that's coming. And so anyways, that was kind of my takeaway from that there. Yeah. Vast swaths of the LPL, 10K of them. Fair. I'm trying to make the subject relevant to the people who are listening. You doing okay over there?
I'm having a rough time.
You're like Jason today on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, on today's show, Jason was drinking his coffee and he just started just gagging and choking and was completely hoarse. So go ahead, go get something to drink.
Hot. Oh my God.
Okay, so let's see. So as he goes to do that, let me try to pull up a couple of these other stories that I wanted to hit on today. They're really just I just want to kind of skip across them, and just there's a headline here that I wanted to share with people that I think that if you set an entire university's worth of professional marketers to the task of creating the best headline of all time, I don't think that they would come up with this. This headline is just unbelievable. It's absolutely phenomenal. Here it is. It's San Francisco's poop patrol boss. A poop patrol boss. San Francisco has a poop patrol boss. So
that was my nickname in high school.
The alliteration is phenomenal. The poop patrol boss made $380,000. So not only does San Francisco have a poop patrol boss, but that poop patrol boss is in the top 1% of wage earners in America. $380,000 puts you in the top 1% of wage earners, or approximately, in America.
So it's probably pretty demanding to be the poop patrol boss of San Francisco.
That's fair. That is fair.
And if you're going to be a poop patrol boss somewhere, you're presumably, and I don't know what you're talking about yet, you're presumably putting in a good many hours of work if you're the poop patrol boss of San Francisco.
Right. Yeah. A good many hours of very unpleasant work. I mean, the benefits to that job are going to have to be pretty good just to get someone to do it, to go on patrol. They've got a picture here on the, it's like a Google Maps picture of some auditors who mapped 118,352 case reports of human waste on city streets from 2011 to 2019. So over the course of 8 years, there was 120,000 incidents of human waste just in San Francisco. And so they put this on a map, and it's just a gigantic brown and black mound just completely covering the city. So we got this, they had to hire a poop patrol boss. The human waste on the streets of San Francisco are so bad that they had to hire someone whose only task is to patrol the poop in the city. And that boss makes $380,000, which probably puts them approximately maybe like upper working class in San Francisco. So he's a poop patrol boss making the top 1% in the nation, but he's maybe like the upper end of working class. It's kind of almost like a blue collar position in San Francisco. But here's the rest of the headline. San Francisco's poop patrol boss made $380,000, didn't do crap. Get it? He didn't do crap. Didn't do crap, and has been charged with corruption. If that is not just the like peak San Francisco, this is just George Orwell could not have created a reality where
Read the
you could
headline
have a
again,
headline
all
like
at
this.
once.
San
Go ahead.
Francisco's poop patrol boss made $380,000, didn't do crap, and has been charged with corruption. It's just, it's
nice
beautiful.
together.
It's beautiful. It's such a wonderful thing. Go ahead.
Do you think that he has deputies? By any chance, junior poop, little shit.
I would imagine.
Turn the second.
Yeah, like who's going to scoop the poop when he's gone?
Yeah, I mean he gets vacation, doesn't he?
He must.
You want to know? You want to know? It doesn't take vacation in San Francisco.
Poop. The poop does not take vacation. The poop is there, rain or shine, night or day, come or go. There is going to be poop on the streets.
I would
of San
say
Francisco.
especially in the shine.
Yeah. Okay, so that was just another funny little story that I came across. This one is much less.
We like
funny.
keep it light every once in a while, folks.
Right.
Mix it up for you here at Kingfield.
Oh, we've got jokes in the comments. Another example of why government is shit. Outdoor plumber? And is that just the Democrat Party? What about the human excrement? Right. You guys are on your game today. You're writing the jokes for us. So this story is this is much less of a joking matter. So
seriously.
Exclusive. This is from Gateway Pundit, written by Cassandra Fairbanks. She says, exclusive. NYC judge removes 6-year-old from mother because she didn't wear a mask while dropping her off at school.
Hell yeah.
So this is at the Birch Wathen Lennox School, founded in 1960.
Wait,
what?
The what?
The Birch Wathen Lennox School on the Upper East Side.
That sounds terrifying. I don't know why. That doesn't sound like a school that you want to go to.
No, but I'm sure that the parents are paying a massive sum for their child to attend there.
Yeah.
So here's the story. It says it was a normal day for Dr. Micheline Epstein. I think that your microphone on your shirt is rubbing on your shirt or something like that.
I'm so sorry.
Hearing it.
Am I fired?
No, you get a promotion.
Okay.
So you assign your own salary. And just give me the check, I'll write it. So it was a normal day for Dr. Micheline Epstein, a family physician, when she went to drop her daughter off at the Birch Wathen Lennox School on the Upper East Side last week, until her entire life was turned upside down in an instant. Do me a favor, search for Birch Wathen Lennox School and find out what the tuition is there. I want to find out what this woman has been paying to be treated the way that she was treated. So her entire life was turned upside down in an instant. The tearful mother explained in a phone call that her daughter was already inside the building and wearing a mask when the school nurse and school security attempted to force Dr. Epstein to wear a mask on the public street in front of the building where drop-off takes place. Dr. Epstein refused. Quote, no one got physical or anything. She just refused to wear the mask. They were outside on the public sidewalk, said Dr. Epstein's boyfriend, Jeff Gutenplan. He explained that, adding that the daughter was wearing a mask because they are required to wear a mask to go inside. The mother explained that the school nurse came out and was aggressively demanding that she put on a mask, but she was already leaving and did not accept it. The next thing I know, my daughter is taken away from me, she cried. Dr. Epstein is separated from her daughter's father, and they had a shared custody agreement where the child split times between the home equally. The divorce, however, has been bitter. Following the confrontation at the school, Dr. Epstein left, but would soon find a letter from the expensive college prep school sent to her, her estranged husband, and the attorneys for both parties. The school was demanding that Dr. Epstein was no longer permitted to drop off or pick up her child from the school. So because she would not wear a mask on the street, outside, on public property, the school is requesting that she not be permitted to drop off or pick up her child from school at all. Okay, so what was it? What's the tuition?
I wanted to see if we get some guesses. Someone guessed at 43,000. It is between 47,000 and 48,304 plus fees.
So this is tuition for a 6-year-old.
You don't want to forget about the fees. I mean,
the fees will get you.
So it's just like, okay, yeah, 48 G's, 47, 48 G's, okay. Did you think about the fees?
You've always
Like,
got to think about the fees.
let's not. I don't even know. I don't know stupid yuppie like children's name. Like when they're like it was like Harrison and like shit. Last I knew. But now it's all what's all like. Is it like Brinkley? Like all like the Lily things, or is that even like
Brinley or something?
Yeah, shit like that. Or they moved on to different stupid names now. No offense to Brenly in the fucking comments or what whatever. Sorry, but yeah, like you don't want to get Brenly's fucking hopes up because you forgot to account for the fees.
Right. Poor little Brenly, 6-year-old Brenly, right. with her $48,000 a year college prep school.
If you forgot to leave room for the fees, and consider that possibility, I'm guessing you didn't go to a fucking $48,000 a year prep school when you were 6.
Yeah. What are you, some kind of a pleb?
Yeah.
John says his daughter has a friend from school named Blakely. John, do you send your daughter to a $48,000 a year college prep school in the Upper East Side?
I think that might be like a generation behind. I think Blakely might have been See, that's what happens with names. Like Ashley used to be upper crust, back in like whenever, and then like as it just trickles down to Walmart.
Now it's like Ashlyn.
Right.
Yeah, and pretty soon it's going to be like maybe they start combining it, like Ashlyn Lee, and you got to have random capitalizations in there too.
How much is private school in Chicago, Johnny?
Yeah, John.
I guess you have to put it in the comments. Be curious.
Yeah. He says.
Like, are
he
we
says.
Close?
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Come on. What's your social security number? Just throw us that, and we can look all the information up ourselves.
We'll figure the rest out.
Yeah, I've got a guy I know. He can get me some info. Anyways, so if there, Jim McGill says, I swear if there are any Jim Lees, I'm out. Just add Lee to it. So here's what's funny. What I wonder is, like, at what point are these white libs who are just so like they're the white fragility, the people who buy white fragility and like put it on their kitchen table, prominently display it on their kitchen table. So
Don't
they
open
like
it though, right?
What's that?
But never open it, right?
Right. Well, yeah, but they put it on their kitchen table so that so their hired help can make sure that they see it. They have to demonstrate to everyone that they're a fully converted, awakened member of polite society. Right. So I wonder if they like at what point do they have to keep making these super creative names, but. Mm-hmm. I imagine that they've probably got to be careful doing things like starting to add apostrophes or like D apostrophe in front of it or something.
I see where we're going with this.
Because like, isn't that this is a genuine question. If they start doing that type of thing, is that a good way to get yourself attacked for like cultural appropriation?
Correct. Yeah.
These people are going to have a dilemma facing them very shortly. Anyways, back to the story.
Yeah. Yeah, you're gonna get a phone call. It's just like, yeah, the name's Blakely, but the B's wearing a hat, and it's like, no.
This is how hieroglyphics began. Hieroglyphics are just a leftover from the last like degenerate collapsed society that had to keep getting more and more creative with their kids' names. But they had to dance around. They couldn't get too culturally appropriative in their kids' names, so. They just had to start creating alternate letters. Okay, so Dr. Epstein is separated from her daughter's father. They had shared custody agreement where the child split times between the home equally. Okay, so the school's demanding that she no longer be permitted to drop off or pick up her child from the school. If that wasn't already bad enough, the father used the notice. The guy doesn't miss an opportunity. He used the notice about the mask situation to request an emergency hearing for full custody. So the school gets all bent out of shape that mom is not wearing a mask out on a public street, and they file requesting that she not be permitted to drop their child off at all. The dad, the estranged ex-husband, sees this as a perfect opportunity to get her declared, I don't know, something like that. Basically, she's irresponsible or that she's not mentally stable enough or whatever. So he jumps at this opportunity to request an emergency hearing for full custody, and the judge grants it after berating the already emotionally devastated mother. So this mom goes to drop her kid off, gets requested that she no longer be able to drop her kid off, and then she loses full custody of her child for not wearing a mask out on the street. Additionally, the court decided that the mother is not permitted to remove her daughter from the expensive school and told her that she does not have a choice in the matter. Get this. She is currently working 3 jobs to pay for not only her daughter's expenses, but the 6 lawyers she hired to fight what she was referring to as the kidnapping of her child. This is only in 21st century America could you get a story like this, where this woman can afford to send her child to a $48,000 a year, her 6-year-old child to a $48,000 a year college prep school. She can afford to hire 6 lawyers to fight for custody of her child, but she has to work 3 jobs to do it. It's just like, who's the victim here? I can't figure out who's getting victimized by who. I can't figure out, really, every single person here is getting victimized by this completely deranged system. And people participate in this as if it's just, yep, this is just what life is like. This is just completely normal. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is like, if people see this now and they don't get themselves extracted from these types of situations, you deserve what's going to happen to you. There's no way that this girl's in this school because it gives her the best education possible. This girl's in this school because it's a feather in her cap for the society that her mother wants status in. Her mother gains status from sending her child to this school. So she's been convinced that this is the best choice for her daughter. And now she's just realized that sending her daughter to this school has effectively meant transferring custody of her child away to this school. She no longer has custody of her child because she wouldn't participate in this goofy charade from this religious cult that's taken over America. This is when Vin Armani talks about the dim age. This is the dim age. These are the events that people are going to look back on generations from now and be like, you know, what are like the weird superstitions that we look back on people in the dark ages? People doing just like had these bizarre superstitions to try to avoid this plague that they saw as they saw it as a demon that was coming to get their. In a sense, they probably were right. If this isn't demonic, I don't know what is. This is the plague. This is the pandemic. This demonic system of no accountability and just complete derangement and complete divorce from any sort of reasonable, rational, stable, communal society. When you strip God from the equation and you place at the top of your equation the self, the capital S self, as the God, this is what you get. This is the consequence of the material age. We have reached the culmination of the material age with this story right here.
Man. Very conflicted.
How do you feel conflicted?
Well, because just from what it informs, you know, but just kind of seeing this person who, like you said, you know, she's doing well enough to send her kids to that prep school, and you know, can afford lawyers and fight things in court and the whole bit, and she still, you know, she still is going to fall prey to the system. So as opposed to a bunch of like regular ass people, probably not gonna have a lot of good luck with the system, you know. Yeah. And
if you're gonna go head to head with it,
yeah,
good luck.
Yeah. Oh boy, don't talk about the LP. Don't talk about the LP. All right. But just in my own,
we have to. We can't not.
Just in my own little corner of the world, you know, I woke up with this feeling that I'm just gonna, you know, say to the classes that I have, just like, hey, look, when May comes around, I'm not screaming for 2 hours through through a piece of cotton. It's just not happening. It's killing the vibe. People are getting weird about it. You know, if it bothers you, you know, we'll just wait until June or July or August that you can come to the classes, or, you know, never, it never goes away. But, you know, I'm just not gonna, I'm not gonna be, you know, telling grown adults what to do with their face. So if that really bothers you, then, you know, you don't come. That's what I was kind of feeling. And then I hear a story like that, and it's just like, man, if someone wanted to make problems for me, it's just like, I don't mean, they can't take my kids away over my dead body, Braxton. But you know, I don't know. I wonder how miserable they could make my life. But oh, golly, I'm sick of it. If I can use some strong language.
Yeah. Oh man, now we're gonna get the episode demonetized.
Yes. Sorry, dude.
Man. Speaking of the LP.
Yep. Segue. There's the segue. We're always good for one. There it is.
So this is just if we're talking about people engaging with the system, seeing themselves as, so the problem with this woman here is that she didn't fully appreciate the magnitude of the gravity of the situation that she was in. She didn't appreciate just how little control over her life she had. The series of decisions that she made that got her to this point put her in a position where she was at the mercy of somebody else. And when she decided to you know, she's being a good individualist, thinking that she's going to do what she wants, and, you know, she controls her body. I guarantee you, I would bet every dollar that I have that this woman at one point in her life has said something along the lines of "my body, my choice." She has expressed that idea in one sense or another. And she genuinely believed that. She genuinely believed in this message of that's baked into the Western Christian, the foundation of our culture. This belief in the right of every individual to be fully expressed in the nature of their own individuality. And so that's what she's going to do. She's like, you know, I'm not going to participate in this. I can do what I want. I don't need to wear a mask. And, you know, I'm on private property. I'm on public property. You know, that's your property. You do what you want. I'm going to do what I want. This is all very rational. She is playing by the rules of the system as the rules are laid out, as they've been dictated. And in a sense, it's very similar to this lady who, the lady in Texas, at the bank in Texas, like 65 or 70-year-old lady who showed up at this bank in Texas right after the mask mandate was lifted for the state. And she was from Oregon, and she was an RV enthusiast or something. She was driving around in an RV around the country, and she stopped here to pull her money out of the bank, and she's not wearing a mask. And she walked in, and they asked her to put a mask on, and she said no. She refused. She's like, I'm not gonna participate in this. And if you listen to Vin Armani went on Adam Patrick's show. It's called You're Talking Over Me. He went on it a couple weeks ago. And shout out to Adam Patrick. He and I just had a great conversation yesterday discussing this whole mystical material, the I guess the contrast between these two dichotomies and the trajectory of where our culture is going. And we talked about all kinds of, we talked about ancient history and the possibility of it, like Atlantis, and we went out, we covered a whole bunch of ground yesterday, and he just released that episode early this morning. So go look out for that. You're Talking Over Me on Twitter. Your is spelled Y-E-R. You're Talking Over Me on iTunes, rather. So go listen to that and go follow Adam. That's a really good show. So he talked to Vin Armani a couple weeks ago, and they discussed this story. And what Vin pointed out was that this woman, as she's being approached by a cop in this bank who's telling her to put a mask on, she says, well, I don't have to. You know, the mask mandate was lifted. And he says, that only applies to public property. And she's like, well, I am. He says, that only applies in public. You're not in public. You're in a private business. She's like, well, of course I'm in public. She doesn't understand what, like, the legal definition of public versus private. She's like, well, look, I'm out in public. And he's like, you know, you have to put a mask on. And she's like, what are you going to do to me? And he's like, you know, I'm going to arrest you and take you off the property. They're requesting for you to leave. You're being trespassed from the building. And she's like, well, my money is here. And he's like, that's fine. They're taking you out. And she asked him a question. As Vin pointed out, she asked him a very, very rational question. She said, you believe in all of this? And he was like, what? The law? And what she was identifying was, this is insane. We're going through just a completely insane charade. We're
Yeah.
we're divorced from reality completely, and we're
Almost
arguing like
a religious practice in some
right,
ways, sort of a
right.
superstition,
Yes,
if you will.
she bought into the idea that this is a rational
Yeah.
society built on rational discovery and rationally derived principles. She believed that. That's what she's been trained to believe. She didn't
Yeah.
realize that she is now surrounded by a religious cult participating in religious superstition, in religious rituals. And
Yep.
she's taken to the ground, broke her foot, dragged her out. And the
Did they
kicker of
really?
all of it, yeah, yep.
Shit.
The kicker of all of it, as she's being dragged out, she's telling people, "This is police brutality. Look what they're doing to me." And every single person was like, "No, no, 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 no. You're wrong. You're wrong. You deserve this." And that's what Vin pointed out. Is he was like, there wasn't a single instance of someone at least being like, "Oh, come on, man. You know, she's a 70-year-old woman, and you're tackling her to the ground and twisting her arm behind her back." Like, sure, you got to take her out of the building, but you don't need to rough her up in the process. Not a single peep of that. Everyone didn't even budge. They didn't make a sound until she said, "This is police brutality. You can't treat me this way." And then they all spoke
disagreed.
out. They all spoke out in support of the officer. And this was in Texas. This
Right.
was Texas.
Yeah, you know, it reminds me. I forget who was saying like over the summer that that the police were going to be blue. Oh, yeah, it was me. Yeah, so you know, or that they were blue, but people didn't kind of like realize it yet. Yeah, that's it just reminds me of that interaction with the cop when like I said a word, you know, while some guy was ranting at a BLM thing. Nothing about like the topic either, and I got bum rushed. You know, I got very very lightly police brutality. You know, just please shoved. You know, whatever. But like it was at that moment I was like, oh man, they got the cops now. Amazing.
You
Wow,
want to say I
good
told you
job.
so? Is that your
No, just no. I'm looking out my window of exactly where I was where it happened.
Well, I
and
think you
listening
should
to that
say I told
story.
you so.
Nah, fuck that. Nah, because I'm waiting to be wrong. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
you're not going to be.
You know, and my money's oh god. I want to be so bad.
This
I'd love
is
to be wrong.
this mind virus is
Mhm.
is the most effective mind virus of all time, second only to the gospel. The gospel is the only answer to this mind virus, this wokeism. It's one thing that I'm trying to study, and I'm trying to get it's like an intuition that I have, and so I don't want to like completely try to lay it all out right now because I can't defend every point of it. I need to keep studying this. But what we're seeing is in the political and the religious realm, there's been this evolution toward decentralization. That's what the Reformation was a religious decentralization movement, and it's paralleled on the political side with the development of like republicanism and then democracy and communism, and this is just a continual a dissolution of structure, a continual move more and more toward the atomized individual. And what we're seeing is the decay of the foundation of civilization. Civilization doesn't hold itself up. Civilization is held up by ritual. It's held up by tradition. People participate in these traditions because they were taught those traditions by the generations who came before them. And the generations who came before them were taught those traditions by the generations who came before them. And the reason that these traditions keep getting passed on is because they work, because they're adaptive. They're, as one person I saw put it, they're load bearing. Like they are these traditions and rituals of Christianity, of Christian life, are the foundation, the load bearing foundation upon which modern civilization was built. And now we have this like unstoppable energy that's dedicated to just destroying this foundation and just hacking at it at every chance that they can get. And so we're watching, we're being returned back to the stuff that really matters, the stuff that really gets you through, which is families and churches and local communities. There's just I follow the Gab channel on Twitter, and Andrew Torba, the CEO of Gab, he gets it. He gets it in a lot of ways. And one thing he said is we need to localize the MAGA movement. This is where we're heading. Like people with the nature of the internet and the ability to engage with and talk to anybody on the earth at any given time. It's given us a global consciousness where we're trying to be aware of and track with and participate in global trends. And the human brain just isn't capable of that. Like we're not wired to be able to interact with a global society. And it's tearing us apart because we're moving away from the things that hold human beings together, which is primarily the family and the church. Those are the institutions that you have to have. Without those, your whole society is just going to fall apart. And that's what we're getting now. We have this false church of this COVIDian cult, and it's tearing families apart, literally. And it's tearing families apart because the families are what stand in the way of this virus spreading itself. If families are permitted to hold themselves apart and to teach their children something different than what society wants them taught, then that's a bulwark against the spreading of this mind virus. So the people who participate in this mind virus of progressivism, of wokeism, of progress, of democracy, the people who participate in this, they know that it's a shell game. Like it has to constantly expand. If it's not constantly expanding, it loses its ethos. Its only teleology is, its only purpose, its only motivation is to expand and to take over territory, to conquer. It's imperial. Democracy is fundamentally an imperial mind virus. And without a land to conquer, without a people to conquer, without something to conquer, it fizzles out. And so it's the brilliance of it, like the sheer adaptive, selective brilliance of it, that it's evolved to this point to where now it's so abstract. I'm struggling to try to make. I want to make sure that I'm making sense. But this virus that's just spreading itself through people's minds and just breaking down any sort of resistance to it is just phenomenal. And so that segues us to kind of the main thing that's been on Steven's mind lately, which is this new trend of Asian Lives Matter. So it's interesting. You've got Asian Lives Matter now, and of course Black Lives Matter. And
Asian Lives Matter is always on my mind ever since college.
You've got a special spot in your heart for Asian lives, huh?
Yeah, I really
Tell us
do.
about it.
I don't. No, that's such a no. There's no special spot, but like there is like we're gonna get kicked off, man. I can't talk. I just noticed.
Did you watch the video that I sent you just before we went live?
Absolutely not. I was cleaning smoothie off myself. Is there a disproportionate amount of libertarians that have Asian wives? I'm going to say that there is.
I'd say probably relative to the rest of the population.
In the supporting listeners group over in the Patreon, if anyone wants to head over that way, I actually have a theory about that I can't say on YouTube, but yeah, and yeah, just go. Let's smartly move along, shall we?
Well, I was going to say the video that I sent you just before we went live here. It's a commercial in. I don't know. This is my Western centric perspective. It was some Asian culture. I didn't recognize the written language. But it's there's a black guy walking up to this chick who's who's working with the washing machine, and he kind of like sidles up to her like he's coming up to like kind of schmooze on her, and she takes like a pod. I think the commercial is for like a detergent pod, and she opens his mouth and sticks the detergent pod in his mouth, and then
No,
grabs his
oh,
face,
I know what you're talking about.
dumps
That's
him
old, I
into
think.
a
Okay.
washing machine, pushes him all the way in there, runs the washing machine, and then she pulls out just a normal looking Asian guy. It was like, oh my God, and this was made, I mean, within the last few years. This isn't like, obviously it's a TV commercial, so it has to be relatively recent. That's a level of racism that hasn't existed in America between whites and blacks in generations. That is a phenomenal level of racism. And now the narrative that this mind virus is pushing through to us is that actually Asians and black people are allies. This is the level of talking about like surmounting potential barriers to the spreading of this virus. This is one of the biggest barriers that it's come in contact with, trying to turn black people and Asian people into allies.
Well, even if it's just allies against,
Well, I'd say
I just
allies
kinda-
against what?
you know what, or who, or but yeah, we've talked about this a little bit, where there's a lot of capital in being able to make people feel disenfranchised and helpless, so that they will be loyal to you. So we've done a couple episodes on that, and if I just may be stereotypical for a moment, kind of one of the last holdouts of the minority groups seemed to be Asians. You didn't really see a lot of people jumping to feel disenfranchised or get in on the Oppression Olympics, or whatever term you want to use. But I noticed just a few days ago that I was seeing on, again, the bellwether that is my Facebook news feed, a lot of that, Asian Lives Matter stuff, and just a sort of singing a different song than in years past. And it feels like that's sort of the last minority, to get into the mix. I remember at one point, you would start hearing black and brown. I remember where that started to be kind of a thing, where before it was, typically like just black or whatever. And it's kind of like how LGBT, keeps kind of like adding, over the years. And the same thing is happening, racially. And it's not an accident that Asians are last, because I think that culturally speaking, very broadly, that wasn't going to be kind of a natural move for them. But it just goes to show that this is all very powerful. I guess as the generations go by and go to more government schools, it's going to get in there. There's going to be some worms in that brain.
It is interesting that it would be that it just on its face you would think that this is just one that just wouldn't fly, because at least in every past iteration of this Oppression Olympics thing, or whatever you want to call it, you can at least, like, you can see where people are coming from to some extent. It's kind of like, okay, well, I at least I can understand why you see yourselves that way. I can understand why someone was able to successfully sell you the idea that you're oppressed. I can understand how that job was accomplished. But now it's like now this mind virus is going for what would it be? It's like function over form. It's like or it would be form over function. They're trying to take this exact same formula and just apply it to another group. And it's like with each successive group they attempt to apply it to, it is less and less relevant. And now it's becoming really transparent what's happening. Like, it's very, very clear. Like, when people are now all pointing out, you see Black Lives Matter, Latinx lives matter, and Asian lives matter. it was kind of like, okay, well, there's something that's pretty glaringly missing here. There's kind of break it down. It seems like there's something that's not there.
That's what we said. We said if you save everyone a lot of time. We said everyone except for straight white guys.
Right. Everyone except straight white guys. So this again. So if you think about this mind virus being an imperial, having an imperial ethos, then the way that you conquer groups is by stripping people off from the whole. If you're going to invade, think of, 500 years ago, you have an army and you're ready to go invade. Well, you don't just go, you don't take your army and just go like attack as many people as you possibly can on as many fronts as you possibly can. You think strategically and you pick people off one at a time and you pull them in one at a time. You overtake this people group. Once you've secured that, once you've established that territory, then you go conquer the next one. You've secured that, you establish that territory, and you keep doing this. And the people who were able to do this most effectively were able to conquer a tremendous amount of territory. But it got to the point where they could no longer effectively govern it because it was so expansive. And you get these cycles, these archetypical cycles that eventually, as you zoom out enough, you start seeing these patterns that the empire is going to be so large and it's going to have so many diverse interests within it, and every single person within it fundamentally is going to want to pursue the betterment of their own individual tribe, because it doesn't matter how large of a tribe you become part of, you still have baked into you a loyalty or an affiliation with the tribe that you most closely identify with. So it's inevitable that when you get an imperial power that conquers a large enough territory, whether geographical or ideological, it's just a matter of time before it starts fracturing and it starts dissolving and falling apart. Here, I'll meet you for the train. So now, once you realize this, once you recognize this pattern, you recognize that, the Roman Empire collapsed and fell apart. The British Empire collapsed and fell apart. The French Empire collapsed and fell apart. Each of these empires collapsed and fell apart eventually because you just get too many diverse interests all trying to feed from the same trough, and it devolves into factionalism and tribalism because ultimately humans are tribal. That's just a fact of life. Humans are tribal, and when push comes to shove, people will opt with their tribe over another. So then the goal, if you're trying to overcome that tribal instinct, what you have to do is you have to try to get a tribe that where the tribe somehow, loyalty to the tribe transcends loyalty to their smaller fractional tribe. This is where political belief systems are kind of like a technology that's in its infancy, where I can identify with being a Democrat and democracy is my tribe, or democratness is my tribe, and no longer is my tribe gay people or black people or Asian people or whomever else. I can identify with this political belief system that transcends these other tribes. I think the problem is those other tribes that's a hurdle that's extremely difficult to surmount, to get people to deny the tribes that are associated with tangible material things that they see in front of them, like their skin color or their sexual persuasion or their class is another one. The class of their economic class. Those are difficult tribes to transcend and get people to just buy purely into a political movement. So right now, while there's energy, while it's moving forward, while it seems like they're conquering, lots of people are going to be attracted to it because everybody wants to be part of a conquering tribe. But it's just a matter of time before the conquering becomes less effective and it becomes more transparent what's happening, and the steam starts to get let out of it, and it starts to slow down. And the people who are riding this conquering beast are going to be like flogging it, trying to get it to go. But this is where you're going to see just the complete collapse and dissolution of the American empire. And anybody who thinks that you're in a position where you're going to try to save it, you're going to try to save the scraps of it, all you're doing is putting yourselves in the crosshairs to be the next enemy. This mind virus needs an enemy, and you don't want to give it one.
Right. So in so doing, you're actually providing them. That was what I was been kind of waiting to ask. You're just basically providing them fuel.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So, okay. So when I see that was like when all these lockdowns started. That was my first. One of my first instincts was it's like, okay, all the podcasts have to stop. I mean, like you're getting people. If you're just getting people whipped up for nothing, you're serving their purpose, and you're working against your own interests. And I think the more I see about the stuff with the LP, talking about how hard they're going to go head on and blah blah blah. It's like, man, I don't. It's like you don't. You're not helping.
Yes.
You're not helping. And for a bunch of people who are real smart, I saw yeah, well, I hope I took a screenshot of it because I think it's gone now. But I saw that they were flaming this account, Liberty Hangout, and let's. I hope I can find it. But she had posted. I'm gonna try to get it here in a second. But it was a bunch of very smart libertarians, flaming this girl, and or I presume it's the girl, but it's whoever runs Liberty Hangout, and her tweet was the following: it's a picture of the yellow and black flag, whatever the fuck. Does that have a name? That's the ANCAP flag. Okay, fair enough. We are officially rebranding this flag. The yellow represents Catholicism and black represents hierarchy and order. Anyone you see flying this flag loves Jesus, loves monarchy, and loves authority. And so they were going in on her. And that's what libertarians like to do. They like to go in on people and feel smarter. And I really don't know who runs Liberty Hangout. I think it's two people. And I think they do some just kind of provocative stuff. I think they were very big in the MAGA thing for a little bit, and I don't really know why they do it, but even though this statement right here, again, we are officially rebranding this flag. The yellow represents Catholicism and the black represents hierarchy and order. Anyone you see flying this flag loves Jesus, loves monarchy, and loves authority. They at least tapped into some questions that libertarians are not asking themselves. Even
just from a shitposting perspective, it's brilliant.
Right. But just if you look at it, and I might be being too generous here, but if you look at it, she is the first thing that she is immediately doing is realizing this doesn't seem to be working. Oh, this yellow and black shit right here. This has not particularly gotten us where we want to be. So we have to do something. I'll give her that. On its face, it looks like that's what she's saying, and that's what her instinct is, and that already puts her 1,000 miles ahead out of most libertarians. The yellow represents Catholicism. Ooh, that's interesting. Like I've been saying, it seems that people are recognizing on some level that this battle is not just a matter of talking about Rothbard. This is not just ideas. This is happening somewhere else, and happening on a spiritual plane if you're a Ben Armani fan or whatever. But the idea that we're operating against something that we don't exactly understand and isn't behaving like things we've dealt with in the past. Good on you, whoever runs this account. And the black represents hierarchy and order. Okay, so now we're kind of tapping into the idea of maybe that libertarianism is a great idea, but it works way the hell down the road, and is not congruent with how human beings tend to organize themselves hierarchically. And then monarchies, and I don't know why she threw. I mean, I kind of know why she threw in monarchy. I don't know if she's doing it just to troll, or if it just kind of goes along with the pursuit of a libertarian society. Maybe she's taking it past Hoppe. But that was and loves authority. And loves authority, which is obviously going to rile up a lot of libertarians. So we've put it all together. We are officially rebranding this flag, the ANCAP flag. The yellow represents Catholicism and the black represents hierarchy and order. Anyone you see flying this flag loves Jesus, loves monarchy, and loves authority. So she's hitting on she's hitting on, the material and the mystical. She's recognizing that that the ANCAP thing isn't working, and in these guys were just going in on her. But I think someone said, because of course it got deleted now, but someone said that when you read democracy, the God that failed, but you missed the point. And so I started a little bit of shit because I was driving and I was bored, and I said, well, the guy who wrote democracy, the God that failed, damn near missed the point of it, and he did, And so we had like a really long back and forth, but and again, I don't know what her philosophy is in tweeting this, or just trolling or doing whatever, but those are just topics that just watching how kind of like how ridiculous the libertarians were taking that tweet as opposed to like stop and think about it for half a second. It just really spoke a lot. And then they just they'll make fun of her and then go back to talking about how they're going 1,000 miles an hour head on at the regime, and you're just being its gas tank effectively.
This tweet, I think, was just perfect. It was just absolutely phenomenal. It's half shit posting and half like actually making a legitimate point, like you said, and like you broke down there. From my experience, I think Liberty Hangout kind of has they went through it's the gun girl. I can't remember her name, Caitlin something or other.
I think it's Caitlin something. Yeah.
And Justin Moldeau, the guy who started Liberty Hangout, and at least he used to be an ANCAP. She used to work for InfoWars, and they got married, and they did they had this transition to monarchy, like embracing religion and monarchy a couple of years ago. They for basically the same reasons kind of that we did. And so I think that's a really insightful point that you made, that just by making this tweet in the first place, it's an implicit acknowledgement that this ideology is ineffective. It's insufficient. It doesn't accomplish what it is trying to accomplish. And
it accomplishes the opposite in many ways.
Right. It's not just ineffective, it's counterproductive. And by one thing that people really don't like is when you take their symbols and use them against them. So just from a perspective of like shit posting and trying to get people's attention, this is a brilliantly crafted tweet, because it takes someone's symbol who claims to be anti-authoritarian, and it says, actually, your symbol represents the very thing you claim to hate. And
there's no IP, so it's mine now.
right. And that's just it's just a brilliant way of getting under someone's skin. But speaking of being under someone's skin, what this person has observed is that religion is like the flesh and politics is like the skin that covers the flesh. But really the skin doesn't matter as much as the flesh that's underneath it. And that's what this tweet is getting at, that if you want to see this world, if this is the world that you want to live in, this is where you need to be focused. The bio for Liberty Hangout says, promoting the message of peace, prosperity, and property rights since February 11, 2015. And I know that in February 11, 2015, that Liberty Hangout stood for, would consider themselves anarcho-capitalist. But so I can see someone looking at this and saying, oh, you can't say that you've done that since 2015 because you used to be an ANCAP and now you're a monarchist, and those two things are completely different value propositions. And in fact, it's entirely coherent, because if you want peace, prosperity, and property rights, how do you get that? The idea of property rights implies a hierarchy. The idea of property rights implies authority. To have peace and prosperity, you have to have authority. You have to have authority that creates the environment and protects the property rights, which is what peace is. Peace is fully enforced, protected property rights. And in order to have that, you have to have a sovereign power that secures those property rights. Right now, that so-called sovereign power is the state, but obviously that doesn't work well. And then a lot of people, they hear monarchy and they think, oh, well, you want to go back to the old system of monarchy of the Middle Ages. And obviously that's not what we would want, because that system led to democracy. So if that system led to democracy, it did it for a reason. So we don't want to repeat that mistake. We want to innovate something different. And we don't necessarily know exactly what that is. But if you understand politics, if you understand where political action comes from, if you understand that it's motivated by religious fervor, then you're going to start engaging on the religious level. And only once you have someone in the comments here, Popular Liberty said, religion is tribal glue. That's a really good way of putting it. Religion is tribal glue. If you want to have peace and prosperity, then you need to have a tribal glue, and religion is what that is. So that was, there was one thing I wanted to remind people of was just, I'm gonna bring this up as many times as possible, but this passage from Moldbug. For example, in many ways, nonsense is a more effective organizing tool than the truth. Anyone can believe in the truth. To believe in nonsense is an unforgeable demonstration of loyalty. It serves as a political uniform, and if you have a uniform, you have an army. Again, each time that you see the insanity of the system, each time you see hypocrisy among libs, and you see the blatant double standard in the press, recognize the nonsense exists for a reason. The nonsense is a feature. It's not a bug. And conservatives, you get conservatives, right-wingers, libertarians, or whatever, that they'll highlight to Democrats, to libs, how they're hypocrites. They'll be like, "Oh, look, you said this before, but now you said this." If your role in the conversation is indicating to your enemies that they aren't principled, what you're asking for is for your enemies to be principled, to be better, to be better themselves than they are, then you're implicitly surrendering to their value system. So as my buddy Howard McIntyre likes to say, it's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy. They hold the power. They get to decide what is and isn't hypocrisy. And until you can do something about that, then, as my other buddy Halden Peterson likes to say, pointing out hypocrisy is blue pill behavior. Once you realize the hypocrisy is a feature, then you can start moving forward. Then you can start talking about actual solutions. So we don't really need to go into this LP thing, Dave and Sarwark. It just, if you guys have listened to the show if you've listened to any episodes that we've done before, you understand exactly what we're going to say. I don't feel like we're going to really accomplish much by just continually beating up on Dave Smith. And I feel like if I start talking about Nicholas Sarwark, I'm going to say stuff that's going to get this channel deleted. So just be wise. Don't get yourself in unwinnable fights, and don't waste your resources on stuff that just isn't going to move the needle. Focus your efforts on stuff that will move the needle, and lose the idea that you're going to save this system or any resemblance of it. You need to get used to the idea that the next several years, maybe decades, I don't know, are going to be pretty rocky. And there's not going to be a clean solution. There's not going to be some Deus Ex Machina that comes in and just saves the day. There's not going to be a political solution to all of this. This empire has to collapse. This is the way of history. This is how historical cycles go. This is just recognize the pattern. Understand the
Unfortunate
patterns.
timing.
What?
Unfortunate timing.
What do you mean?
Just to be alive.
Oh, I don't know. I can understand why. At the same time, I think it's also fascinating. Like, we're living through just such wild, crazy history, and there's such great opportunity ahead of us. When I was talking to Adam yesterday, I said, like, right now we're entering what Vin calls the dim age. We're entering this new mystical age. And there's this dark force. There's this dark demonic force that is spreading and expanding its power and its influence across the globe, and that's intimidating. That's frightening. It's depressing. But as this mystical age begins to open itself up, for every advance that the darkness makes, that's just that much more territory for the light to move into as well. So there's a great realm for innovation, both technological innovation, like physical material innovation, but also mystical innovation for discovery, of new concepts and expansion of consciousness. And I think that for those of us who see this coming, it's a great opportunity for us to be some of the first people out there exploring this new territory and reaping the benefits of being the kind of the first explorers in a new land. And I think that there's a lot about that to be excited about. It just means you have to tread carefully, because for every wilderness you go explore, you might find a wonderful new meadow by a nice river with a beautiful little waterfall, and you also might find a den of snakes surrounded by lions and tigers and bears. So you have to be circumspect in how you tread into this new world. But I think that there's a lot of opportunity to be had.
Yeah, I'm not an explorer is the thing. So
Yeah.
I'm not doing any of that. I just, I watched all these little, the people progressively get more and more younger than me just gallivant across the world and have really dope Instagram accounts. And I was just like, I'm building my business, but I'll fucking get there. And then, I'll never be on a goddamn plane again, probably ever. So it fucking sucks. Should have just been
that's kind of how
irresponsible and
I'm expecting.
fucking had a good Instagram account and a bad bank account. I don't give a fuck about exploring anything. Yeah, I'm just kind of basic and want nice photos, but
well, exploring isn't just exploring the material world. You can explore the mystical world as well, and I think that's where the territory is really opening up. We're kind of, it's sort of like we've explored the vast majority of, not even the vast majority, but we've explored a lot of the physical world. But I think that there has been a serious lack of innovation in the mystical world over the last several generations have been very spiritually dead, and so there's I think we have a lot of ground to make up, and there's a lot of thinking and writing and discussing that we can do, and we've got better technology for facilitating that than we ever have. Again, it's just a matter of imagining you're in a great game of whack-a-mole and you don't want to be the person who's putting your head up out from the rest of the crowd and getting whack-a-moled. One observation I had, I was talking to my darling mother-in-law the other day about this, and about when you think of things from a generational perspective, and how each new successive generation is born in a different world than the prior generation, and with the acceleration of technological development, the generation gaps are getting like someone who was born in 1920 and someone who was born in 1930 grew up in, and obviously you have the Roaring '20s versus the Great Depression, but more or less it was basically the same general world. 1920 and 1900 weren't that far removed from each other, and if you go all the way back, like 1750 to 1800 was very much the same sort of world. There was not a tremendous amount of innovation, a lot of change happening, but as you go 1940, 1950, 1960, 1970, 1980, like someone who was born in 1980 and someone who was born in 1990 grew up in very different worlds. Someone who was born in 1990 and someone who's born in 1995 grew up in very different worlds. 95 to 2000, 2000 to 2005. Now it's almost like generations, instead of a generation being, 30 or 40 years, it's like the generations are narrowing. They're getting narrower and narrower, where someone who was born in 2020, like my son, will grow up. The difference in the world that he'll grow up on compared to the world that I was born and raised in. I was born in 1988. My son was born in 2020. The difference in the way the world has changed in those 32 years is mute. The way the world has changed in those 32 years is drastically different from the amount of change that happened from, say, 1988 to 1956, or 32 years prior to that. The world is changing super rapidly, and that change is accelerating. And this has psychological consequences. It impacts the perspective on the world for a given generation. And as you really have to read Vin Armani's book. You have to read his new book, Render Unto Caesar, especially the beginning of it, where he talks about cultural cycles, the way that you start with a generation that develops these rituals or these traditions that they undertake, and they do these things. They do these rituals or these traditions because it promotes the thriving or the surviving and the prosperity of the tribe. And by definition, the rituals that don't work don't persist, and the people who practice those rituals don't survive. So the people who do survive are the people who have the most adaptive rituals, the most adaptive traditions. And so the generation that developed those traditions teach them to the next generation. The next generation practices them because their parents did. The generation after that practices them because their grandparents did. The generation after that practices them because their great-grandparents did. But once you get enough generations far enough removed, then it starts getting to where it's like, well, we do these rituals, or we have these traditions just because we do. We don't necessarily know why. We just do them because our parents did them. And when you mash this up with technological development, there's the possibility that new technologies have been developed that renders those original traditions unnecessary. You don't have to do them. But it takes wisdom to know the difference between which rituals you need and which ones you don't, which ones are load-bearing and which ones aren't. And this progressive, this democratic mind virus that we're describing, this wokeism, which is really just liberalism taken to its logical conclusion, their ethos is destroy ritual, destroy tradition, destroy institutions, because those things are oppressive. They see the tyranny that's present in them. Like if you're doing a ritual, if you're compelled to do a ritual arbitrarily, that's basically kind of the definition of tyranny. And so there needs to be this updating of these rituals. But these generations that we're coming into now have no understanding of why these rituals and traditions have existed, why they've persisted to where they did now. That's what religious traditions are, is passing on these adaptive traditions. And there was a rise of, if you listen to Eric Weinstein, he talks about these systems he calls egos, which is very interesting that he chose that term, which is an abbreviation for embedded growth obligation. And it's an ego, an embedded growth obligation, is a characteristic of a system, like particularly within a given industry, that where the system exists to perpetuate itself. So, for example, the relationship between a professor and graduate students. So professors will have grad students who are like being put on a track toward professorship. Or another example of this would be a law practice, where the goal of you have associates whose goal is to become a partner. But as you get more and more people who flood into the practice of law, you need more and more associates, which means you need more and more partners, which means you need more and more law firms. But if the size of the legal industry is growing faster than the rest of society, you only need so many lawyers in a society. If you keep getting more and more, and the system is cranking them out just for the sake of having them, if your academic system is just cranking out professors like crazy, but they don't have anywhere to go, eventually these systems reach a maximum capacity. And beyond that point, they have to create justifications for themselves to exist. So when you marry this graduate to professor, or a graduate student to professor trajectory with tenure, you get a system that's beginning to get stale. And it's beginning to ossify. It's getting overloaded with people that are all trying to do the same thing, and the system doesn't demand that level of investment. So it's kind of like you're getting malinvestment in the application of people's skills or the application of people's education. The system has signaled that we need more lawyers than we actually do, that we need more professors than we actually do. There's a number of different systems that have these embedded growth obligations. And when the system reaches a certain tipping point, it starts having to create justifications for itself to exist. So you start getting innovation in law. So now people are like, well, you know, the system has so many lawyers, it doesn't need any more. Well, I'm going to be the lawyer who specializes in critical theory. I'm going to be the lawyer who specializes in critical race theory. Or I'm going to be the professor who specializes in gender studies. Or, you know, I'm going to be and you start getting these things niched down where you get just completely insane roles that the society has no demand for. And these systems need to have some way of expiring themselves. And but what's happened is that these specifically the legal profession and academia have intertwined themselves with politics. They've intertwined themselves with the acquisition of power. And those two institutions basically control the political system. So they have an incentive to try to keep their systems alive just for the sake of keeping them alive. So then you get people that start backing up behind them. And you have people who are coming through and getting PhDs, and then they're like, okay, well, now what do I do? I got a PhD, but there's nobody who needs PhDs because they've got a whole line of 50 people with PhDs all trying to get a job at this one institution, and there's only one spot. So what this eventually creates is a lot of resentment. People begin to resent the system. They're like, well, I was deceived, especially if they went into debt to get into these positions. They're like, I was deceived. I was promised that I was going to have a seat at the table. And now that I've gone through all of the rituals that I was required to go through, when I come here to sit at the table, they say there's no seat for me. So what am I supposed to do? You lied to me. You need to fix my problem. If you notice, if you go back in the 1800s and you look at, like the founding fathers, for example, the guys who wrote the Declaration of Independence, the guys who debated all of it, the guys who signed the Declaration of Independence, many of the most influential thought leaders of that era were in their 20s. Some of them were even in their teens. They were very, very young. And then you had politicians who were young. You had university presidents who were young. You might have a university president in the 1800s who was in his like late 30s or early 40s. That's unheard of today. You don't see the head of institutions that are that young. One particular generation has embedded itself in all of these institutions and isn't letting go. So now you've got the president is getting older and older and older. Trump was the oldest president ever elected when he was elected. And 4 years later, Biden is older than him now. Biden is the oldest president ever elected. Nancy Pelosi is ancient. All of the prominent political leaders, the majority of the most prominent political leaders are all ancient, and they're holding on to power. And this is throughout like CEOs, university presidents, all these most influential positions are largely speaking baby boomers. So what's happened is because the baby boomers didn't have a natural like expiration to their role in the system because they dragged the system along with them and kept themselves institutionalized in their positions. Gen X had like kind of nothing. They were kind of like, they're the ones who were caught holding the bag, that are sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for these positions to open up for them. And if, president of Harvard never opens up to a Gen X person, well, pretty soon Gen X is going to create themselves a different position that provides approximately the same level of access and power and whatever else that the president of Harvard does. Just an example. So like you get, everything starts backing up as there's not this effective flow of generations through these institutions with new ideas and new perspectives and all of that. Everything starts backing up. The whole society kind of grinds to a halt as it's like we're just sitting here waiting for all the baby boomers to get out of the way. So if that affects Gen X badly, it's even worse for the millennials, because now the millennials were still told all the same, told to participate in all the same rituals as the baby boomers did, but they didn't even have the capacity to create new institutions for themselves like Gen X did. So they're left even doubly holding the bag. They have nowhere to go. They have nothing to do. So the whole society starts to grind to a halt and get stiff and fossilized and become more and more unstable. It becomes really top heavy as you have all of these people who have put in all of this investment to get into these industries that have no natural capacity for absorbing new people. And so the millennials are going to burn the world to the ground. The millennials are the ones that are like, you lied to us. You misled us into wasting our lives. Now we can't own property. There's no land to own. We're all in debt. The currency is shit. All the universities are like a college degree is worthless. But at the same time, you get these memes of someone where it's like, you're trying to hire someone who is 20 years old, who has 30 years of experience in the industry. Like these are the sorts of things that Gen X people or that millennials are running into. And so the millennials are the ones who I believe are going to burn the earth to the ground. I think that they're the ones who are just going to like raise the institutions to the ground and salt the earth on top of them. And the Zoomers and the ones beyond them, that's where you're really going to start to see the new world being created. There has to be, like, to use the financial analogy, you need to get the malinvestment out of the system. You have to let the banks collapse. You have to let the businesses go bankrupt. You have to let them go bankrupt. You have to deal with that pain, because when they go bankrupt, that opens up room for new and better, more efficient, more effective solutions. And so the people who can really make a big difference now are the people who are molding and crafting the minds of the Zoomers and the generations after that, because those are the people that are going to have the greatest opportunity to step into a new world. I mean, it's going to be kind of like they're coming into a world that's just like burning it on fire and everything, but they'll have the ability to rebuild out of it. So if you want to start making a real difference, don't be focused on who's like the 2022 election. You need to be focused on what institutions are going to govern our society in 2050, because those are going to be built by people who are being born now. And those are like our children now are the minds who will build the future. So it's up to us to build their minds and to raise them in a coherent, competent environment where they're encouraged to do what is going to make themselves the most healthy, well-adjusted, successful, capable people who are fully equipped to go out into a world that isn't lying to them and misleading them into spending, going into thousands and tens of thousands of dollars of debt to get a degree that's going to be worthless to them. We need to be having children and equipping them to build the future world that they're going to live in, because when they're building the world, we're going to be living in along with them. So, anyways, that was a very long kind of a breakdown, but that's the when I called the episode "The Generation of Degeneration," the collapse of a material age. That's the phenomenon I'm thinking of, that we're now in the generation where everything degenerates, and there's plenty of reasons for why it's happened. It's not really due to one single cause necessarily, but fundamentally, at the basis of all of it, there is one single cause, and that is the denial of Christ. It's the rejection of the gospel, because the gospel is true. The gospel is true whether or not the historical events are true. The gospel is true on a meta level. It's a meta truth. And if you want to be successful and healthy and adaptive within your environment, then you're better off accepting it sooner rather than later, and then teaching your children to accept it as well.
Amen, brother.
You have any thoughts related to that?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
I just had one last thing that I wanted to put out there, just kind of a sort of an "I told you so." This is a thread from this pretty fascinating new account that I followed on Twitter, @MicroPresident. He did this thread a couple of days ago, and I wanted to talk about it on our last episode, but we ran out of time. So I just want to read this thread real quick, because it's further evidence from an Austrian perspective of what we're talking about the inevitability of the centralization of power within a society. So he says, the Austrians have wonderful feedback about the insanity of taxes. but they omit the impacts of the physics of money on the economy in their analysis of taxes. Money, or currency, is only money if it flows like a current from one place to another. Currency, current. The money is only money if it's flowing. If it's not flowing, it's not money. A current requires a driving force to exist. This is presently done by government taxation and spending. That's the Keynesian premise, is that you have to, in order to get money flowing through an economy, you have to have a sovereign force that's forcing the money flow, that's sparking this current through government spending. This is presently done by government taxation and spending, which is rightly pointed out to be a massively flawed system. Austrians might say necessary consumption would drive demand, and it would. However, in the Austrian tax-free system, they forget that the marginal utility of money actually places people with more funds in a better negotiating position. So, put into English, in a even in a system where you have no taxes, where you have no sovereign power that's forcing that's facilitating or processing financial transactions, having more money puts you in a better position than someone who has less. So the people who have more money have a stronger negotiating position by definition, because they can better control the transaction. If you bring $1 million to the table and you're negotiating with someone who brings $10,000 to the table, that extra money that you're above and beyond that 10,000 that you're bringing to the negotiating table, that puts you in a much better position to be able to dictate the outcome of the negotiation. Thus, the people with more funds control the value of the money itself. In concert, working together, they have an incentive to increase the value of their existing holdings by haggling and continually lowering the monetary supply. So basically, those with the most resources have a financial incentive to skew the system in their favor. This necessarily ends in a state of opulence for the wealthy, who have little incentive to invest in public goods, quote unquote, the rich get richer. The reality of this is that at some point, the populace beheads the aristocracy. So in other words, the rich, wealthy, powerful people are going to skew the system to their own benefit. And eventually it's going to get so skewed and so lopsided that the populace is going to come for them. You're going to get the French Revolution, when people are just completely fed up with the clear injustice of the system. So ideally, you would have elites that are enlightened enough to recognize that, and for the sake of their own self-preservation, they don't skew the system to their own ends. But having people with that degree of time preference, like, most people are gonna go for what's gonna benefit them sooner rather than later. It's just kind of natural. Like the value of money, the time value of money today is greater than money tomorrow. So you're going to take advantage of whatever money you can get today. It takes a virtuous, ethical elite to have a stable population. So at some point, the populace beheads the aristocracy, and this ends chaotically and hurts everyone. However, eventually the cost to the underclass will seem worth it getting rid of their masters. When you talk to people today and you tell them, like, oh, if you raise the minimum wage, it's only going to hurt you. You can't rationalize with people about this. You're not going to talk people. You're not going to present a sound economic argument that persuades a populist revolt to back down. They don't care. They're ready to flip the chessboard. If I'm playing chess against you and I'm losing and I get fed up and I flip the chessboard, it's not compelling to say, well, now you lose. They're like, I was already losing. I don't care. I'm going to make sure you lose. This is the sentiment that's out there. You have to play to that sentiment. You can't rationalize with it. So, and then he says, this part is where I don't completely understand this. He says this is basically the hyper-Bitcoinization eschatology of the Bitcoin religion. But they don't seem to understand that people will opt out of using their monopolized money. Will they use guns to force it on people? Cryptocurrency is a godsend because it allows us to remove aristocrats peacefully and to experiment with better systems of resource allocation. So that's, I mean, the Bitcoin part is beyond my kin to really understand. So maybe this is a thread that we'll bring up with Mr. Vin Armani when we have him on the show here. But I just thought that was an interesting thing to bring to your attention. I thought the more economic nerds among our audience may find that interesting. Anyways, I think that was about all that I had for today. You have anything else, Steven?
That is it.
Then let us go. Thank you guys again for listening to another episode of King Pilled. I am Matt. You can follow me on Twitter at Real King Pilled. That over there, Liberal Steve, you can follow him on Twitter at Messina Inc. And
don't follow me on Twitter.
Don't follow him on Twitter, he says.
Don't fucking follow me on Twitter.
And join the if you guys aren't already part of the supporting listeners group, I don't know what's wrong with you. But
really we're gonna go over
know.
there, and you're gonna hear my detailed explanation. It's very simple, but it is detailed about why a disproportionate amount of libertarians have Asian wives. You don't want to miss it, fans.
So go join the supporting listeners group.
Now,
that is it, folks. We will see you again on what's today? Monday. We'll see you again on Thursday at 12:30 or 12:45 Pacific. Toodles.